Hello everyone, welcome. This is Bill the Gilder from Stamplistic, and today I'm going to do a remake of our November online event for Volume, which was the wax gift box. It was originally aired on Saturday, November 19th, 2022, but it got lost somewhere in space, therefore I'm redoing it. So it may not be exactly the same as what I did last time, but it'll be very close, and you'll be able to follow along with your kit. If you have a kit, or if you're buying a kit, what you got was 4 foldable boxes, some black gesso, a paintbrush. You'll need to have a pair of scissors, a hot glue gun, and glue sticks. I'm going to use 3 waxes. I'm going to use verdigris, which is a dark green. I'm going to use pinotage, which is a really dark red. And I'm going to use antique gold. Now, if you have other waxes, you can use any other wax colors that you want to do this. Those are just the colors that I happen to use. I am also going to use several stamps. I'm going to use the Fall Oak stamp, which is one of the Stamplistic stamps. And I'm going to use a couple of the stamps out of the Leafy collection, Leafy 2 collection. Okay. I also am going to probably use my heat gun, only to speed up the drying process of the gesso, just so we can fit it all into the proper time frame. So, why don't we get started? The first thing we have to do is fold the flat boxes that you got and make them into a box form. So what I want you to do is lay it out like this, with this cutout section toward you. I'm going to have you fold in these 2 wings and hold them. And then you're going to fold this up, this bottom wing, and you're going to tuck these flaps inside the box. And now you're going to have a box that looks sort of like this. Remember, these flaps go inside, like this. And then these 2 are going to tuck down into the box, and the little tabs on them are going to lock in place, and that's going to hold the box nice and tight. Now, part of what you're gonna do is this. If you try and put your lid down into here, this tongue here is a little bit tight. So use a pair of scissors and just cut off about 1/8 of an inch, on each side of that. Now this one's already been cut slightly, but you're gonna cut just about 1/8 of an inch off of this side and 1/8 of an inch off this side, so that this tongue then fits nicely into the box. Okay? Okay, once you have your box made, we're going to start putting some stamped images on it. The first thing I'm going to use is my Leafy image. Okay, so this is my Leafy stamp. I'm going to use I'm going to use Elizabeth's Stays On ink pad here. And I'm going to ink up this leaf real well. Now, I'm only going to be really using the leaf part and maybe a couple of the acorns, but just make sure that whatever you do, that you have a good image stamped on. I'm going to use this on the top of the box. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I've got a good image stamp, and you can see I have a nice image stamp. I don't really care about this here because I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use the leaf, and I'm going to use maybe a couple of the acorns. So that's the first thing I want to do. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to use a couple of my stamps out of my Leafy 2 collection. And I'm going to use some of the bigger leaves themselves. Maybe I'll use this one here. And I'll use this one here. And maybe I'll use this one. Okay? So those are the 3 that I'm going to use. And I'm going to put those on the back of the box and the side of the box. I'm going to ink up my stamp, and I'm just going to put one on the side of the box right here. Now you can see that one, nice stamped image there. I'm going to put maybe another one of those And you can do you can make it whatever pattern you want or whatever you like on the sides and the back of this box. And I'm going to use the small one too. And then on the back of the box, I'm going to use that small one again. And I think I'll use this last one of the leafy ones here. Okay, now I've got images stamped on the top of the box, the side of the box, the back of the box, and then the other side of the box. So I've got all stamped images. Now, what I didn't tell you is you probably need to heat up your glue gun before you start this process, so your glue gun is ready to go. So now what I'm going to do is I've got mine heated, and I'm going to start tracing my leaf image with my glue gun, with my hot glue gun. So I'm going to have my hot glue gun ready to go, and I'm going to have several additional glue sticks on hand because I'm going to go through a lot of the glue sticks. And now I'm going to start tracing that leaf. It doesn't have to be perfect. All you're going to do is just use your glue gun and start running along. I'm using this more for a guide than I am perfection. So I don't know if you can see that very easily, but you can see now that I'm tracing that leaf with my hot glue gun. I'm going to turn this a little bit. It makes it nice because this one has a nice trigger grip, which makes it really easy to trace these things. Again, it's not exact, it's not perfect, and that's okay. So now what I have is I've got my leaf basically traced. I'm going to put a few of the veins in here just to give it some reality here. And I'm going to trace those. Okay, so now I've got my leaf traced. I'm going to do the same thing with two of the acorns. The acorns are kind of small, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but we'll just make a rough estimation of an acorn sitting out there. Okay, so I've got a couple of acorns traced. That's all I'm going to do to the top. I'm just going to leave it just like that. Now, these are going to dry very quickly. So it's only going to take, just be careful you don't get too much on your fingers, or you don't touch it too much. And I'm going to start doing my other leaves. So I'm going to trace this. And if you're using a trigger gun, don't squeeze too hard because you don't want to have big globs of glue on here. Okay, so I've got that one traced. I'll do these back ones. And you can see you can move along quite quickly. Now, although we're doing leaves, you can do this with any image. The simpler the image, obviously, the better, the easier it's going to be. But you can do it with almost any image. And it doesn't have to be on a box. It can be, these techniques will apply to, just about any kind of media you want to work with. All right, I need to add another glue stick to my glue gun. So I've got the front done, or the top done, the one side, one of the leaves on the back. I'm going to do the second one now. And then I'll do the third side. Again, there's two leaves on this side. If you haven't used techniques like this, these hot glue guns, the glue sticks, are amazing what you can do with them. And we'll do this last leaf. Okay, now, probably the part that throws people the most is to do a barren tree, a fall tree. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with my tree on the front of my box. And all I'm going to do is do a branch and then go down to a trunk. I'm going to do, in the center, I'm going to do another branch going up. I'm going to do another one. And I'm going to do finally a fourth one. Now, it doesn't look much like a tree, so I'm going to just start adding some branches to this. Just freehand. I don't want, you don't have to do it exactly like I'm doing it. Just add some branches. So it starts looking like a barren tree, like a tree in the fall that's lost its leaves. Okay. And we have all of our images now made. You can see I've got my tree. I have the top, my leaf on the top done. Now that leaf on the top, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this vein that goes right down the middle of my leaf. I just noticed that I didn't do that. Okay. Okay, so I've got all of that done. Now these are pretty dry. You know, this one might still be a little tacky. It is. But these are dry, this is dry. Now, because these are corrugated boxes, one of the things you'll notice is I don't like having this corrugated edge showing around the box. Okay, so I'm going to use my hot glue gun and I'm going to disguise those. I'm going to undo this and I'm going to use my hot glue gun and I'm going to put a nice thick layer of glue down each one of those seams. Now what that's going to do is it's going to hide the corrugation of the box. So it's really very, very effective, and it no longer will look like a small corrugated box. There's nothing to do on the back, so I'm going to turn this and do the other side. And I'm squeezing my glue gun pretty hard for these because I want those corrugations to not show at all. And I'm going to do, oops, that was hot. And now I'm going to do the bottom on this side. Okay, you can see I got a little bit messy here. Okay, now the last thing I want to do, I'm going to let that just dry for just a second, because I put a pretty heavy coat on this and it's pretty runny. But now what I'm going to do is I am going to put and trace this edge here all the way around. Now that's only a small edge, so you don't have to put nearly as much glue on it. So just run along the edge with your glue gun. And I'm going to turn it. I'm going to be careful that it doesn't get me again. All I'm trying to do here is just hide the corrugation of the box itself, the corrugated edges of the box. And then I'm going to run across the top here. Okay, now I am pretty much done with my hot glue gun, so I'm going to turn mine off. I'm going to disconnect it so I don't have to worry about it spilling glue all over. And I'm going to set it aside. Okay, so we're done with our stamps. We're done with our hot glue gun. We've got these nice edges for our box so that they are a little bit tacky yet, but they're drying and they're cooling off. We've got all of our images glued. And we're ready to just start painting. Now, I said earlier that there's sections of this that I didn't care about. We're going to paint right over those. So you're not going to see those parts of the image. So if you're stamping any other kind of image and you don't want to highlight the whole image, just highlight what you want, because now we're going to use some gesso, and we're just going to start painting this whole box. So grab your gesso, grab your paintbrush, and start painting. I'm going to start with the bottom of my box. And again, you don't have to worry too much about what it looks like. Don't use too much, but make sure you cover it all. And just paint the box. Okay. And I'm holding it from the inside, makes it easy. Now, when I paint the sides of these, I'm painting right over the glue highlighted image. And I'm also going to make sure that I paint that top section here too. That section runs along there that you can see. If you want, at some point, you can also paint the inside of the box. I'm going to show you a couple of techniques. There's a couple of things that I do on a lot of the projects that I make. Some of them out of cardboard, but a lot of them out of wood. But it's the same technique. But I am making sure that I get all of the brown cardboard covered with my gesso. Don't want a lot on there because you want it to dry in a reasonable amount of time. And make sure that you get your edges where you put that line of hot glue. Make sure you get those really good too, because otherwise they show in the final product. Now the images that you hot glued, that you outlined, kind of disappear when you're putting your black on, when you're putting your gesso on it. And that's what we're going to highlight with our waxes. Okay, now I'm going to do the front or the top of the box. Again, you don't have to be real neat about this. All you have to do is get the paint on. And I am going to, let's see, this bottom is getting kind of dry, so I'm going to paint the tongue of this because I don't want to see the cardboard. Make sure you get the edges. Now, although I'm using black gesso here, if you want to do something where you're using a different color, I mean, you can use another dark base color on this. You can use a dark red base color if you want. You can use a dark green base color if you want. You can use just about any color you want that's going to suit your purpose. A lot of the projects, even the woodworking projects that I do, a lot of those I do with black as my base because I like a vintage look that the black base gives me, especially when I'm using waxes like antique gold or Celtic bronze or any of the metallic colors. Okay, and I'm going to finish up with painting the tongue here. Now, I'm going to have some darker, some heavier areas and some lighter areas of paint. Some are going to soak into the cardboard very quickly. other areas are not going to soak in quite as quickly. And that's why I'm going to now use my heat gun. And I'm just going to do a quick dry of this whole project. Notice I'm not painting the inside of mine for this. You can paint it if you want to. You can paint it a different color. I think a contrasting color looks very good when you do this as opposed to black. So I'm going to use my heat gun now, and I'm just going to dry my gesso. Because the next step is going to demand that this is all dry. Now, if you don't have not hot glue, but if you don't have a heat gun, if you let it just sit for a few minutes, it's going to dry, and it'll dry very evenly and very quickly. You can see a piece that I missed here. And I'm going to dry this. And I'm sure you can tell on yours that as this dries now you're seeing your image, your hot glue image, start to stand out a little bit. It's not quite as obscure as what it was just a minute ago. They're standing proud of the corrugated box itself. And as it dries, it's drying very evenly. Okay, so my glue is dry, my paint is dry, and you've got probably 90% of your project completed already. Okay, so now we have our completed box. You see our nice image here of the leaf, our nice free-form tree. You can see the leaf on that side, the leaves on this side, leaves on this side. So everything looks pretty good. Okay, I am going to start with my antique gold. Now, if you don't have antique gold, but you have other waxes, you can use Celtic bronze, you can use regular gold, you can use bright gold. Anything you might have will work just fine. I'm going to use my little ink pads here, or my ink pads, and I'm going to get some of my wax on them. And if you've got an applicator, you can use that. And I'm just going to start highlighting now my stamped images. And I'm going to start putting just a real light touch in the background too. I'm going to do a little bit heavier on the image and a lighter touch on the background. Can you see that now? I'm going to do the same thing with the other images. Heavier on the image, lighter. And there's no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing my background. Just use some of your gold color. I like doing the edges because those edges now stand out. They don't look like corrugated box edges any longer. And I'll pull up a little bit more. I'll do my tree, my freeform tree. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to put a little bit of the gold on the tongue of the box, around the edge perhaps. And finally, I'll do my last side and the last edges. Okay, now I'm going to let this dry a little bit. But the way I'm going to dry it is, again, I'm going to use my heat gun, not very hot, from a distance, and I'm just going to heat this a little bit. I'm just going to actually just, if you have a very low setting on your heat gun, that would be all that it's going to take. Because I want to put a couple of other colors on this to bring in some of the pinotage and the verdigris. Okay. So with this being dry, now I can take some of my pinotage. Now the pinotage can be overwhelming, so you don't need a lot of this color. And I'm just going to put some shades, not necessarily in the background, I'm just going to put it on the leaves itself. I'm going to leave my background primarily the gold. And I'm going to dry that. I'm leaving the tree right now. I'm not putting any green on or any pinotage on the tree. And let's use a little bit of green now. Let's use a little bit of the verdigris. Again, you don't need a lot. You just want that hint of the green and a hint of the red. You don't want to cover up the red completely. You don't want to cover up the gold completely. Now for the tree, I'm going to use a lot more of the green on the tree itself. So now I've got the tree done in verdigris. I've got my leaves done. And I have my leaf on the lid done. Okay? So you basically, at this point, you have a completed box. Okay? So you've got everything, you've got your edges covered. All of those edges, mine are pretty messy, and that's okay. That's the way I like them. It's almost like you soldered them. It's almost like it's a metal box that got soldered, and the solder was running along the edges. But you've got all of your edges covered so that they don't look like a corrugated box any longer. And everything is fairly dry. You may want to buff this a little bit using a soft cloth after you let it dry for a little bit, so you don't rub too much of the waxes off. But basically, it's the box is done. Now, let me show you what, to make this fancy. Let me show you one that I did earlier. Same box, same kind of. This was done actually during the class, and then after the class, one of the things I did is I took the inside of it, and this is going to be hard to see perhaps, but I use flocking. I use the spray-on flocking that's made by Donjur, D-O-N-J-U-R. You paint it with a really thick acrylic paint, and then you use a flocking gun, and you spray in fibers. And this is actually flocked inside here. This feels like velvet inside this box. So that's one of the ways that you can take this box and really class it up and make it into something that's a nice keepsake for somebody. Okay? And it doesn't look like a cardboard box. Okay? If you didn't want to do that, you can do just some geometric patterns, on all the sides of the box, like this one. Just do some freehand patterns. Just do whatever you like, whatever strikes your fancy. And this one, the inside of the box is still just plain. Different size box, different kind of box, any kind of cardboard box that you have that's sitting around that you say, I've got a box here, you can make it look like something it's not. This is all a pattern that's on the front, the back, and the top of the box. All done with hot glue, all done. This one was done actually with German silver, so it gives it a little bit of a different look. If you wanted to add some other colors to this, some other colors could be added, but this is a nice gift box also. And again, you can flock the inside of this box. You can paint it with a variety of colors. You can line it with with fabric, you can do just about anything you'd like to do to make these boxes as fancy as what you'd like to make them. Okay. Well, that's the project. You've got 4 boxes to play with. You have, hopefully you have some of the waxes. If you don't have waxes, you can use other coloring media. If you're using a gesso or something, that other coloring media is going to stick to it. You may want to use a white gesso or a black gesso, whatever you would like. But you can see how there's a variety of things that you can do to make these unique pieces that you can put a small present in at Christmas time, at a birthday. You can do just about anything with them. I'm sorry that this is, there's not the ability to answer any questions. We have, this is just a recorded presentation. If you do have any questions, you can feel free to email us at the Stamplistic website, and we'll be glad to answer them. So, happy crafting, and I will see you later.